welcome into our first episode of a brand new podcast. I'm Kate.
And I am Katie.
And welcome. And today's a little bit of an introductory episode, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Yes. We wanna help you guys get to know us because we know our description only goes so far. So we can only put it into so many words. But I'm sure if you read our description, you kind of got an idea that this is going to be a little more of a spiritual, magical, fun ride
Yeah.
to hopefully into what that is. And we wanted to share about our journeys, how we got here, what steps we took to end up somehow hosting our own podcast together.
Yeah. Anytime someone talks about going for a ride, this has come up before, but like with Harry Potter, I just think of it's going to be a bumpy ride. It comes into my head like an intrusive thought anytime someone talks about a ride. So you saying it's going to be a magical ride, I'm like, it's going to be a bumpy ride, and it probably didn't be bumpy. So get ready for some bumps in the road for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah,
which is okay, right? It's okay. And it just makes it interesting.
Yeah.
That's why we're making it. Without the bumps, I wouldn't really feel that my story is compelling at all. So
So let's talk a little bit about what Soul Wilds means to us and why it's called that and what this actually all means. And we have a little bit different interpretations of how that's applied to our lives, but I think it's going to mesh together really well and in the everyone out there that we're trying to speak to and show them that you're not alone on this journey, on this path. But Soul Wilds is essentially us. I imagine I'm a visual person, so I imagine like rummaging through a jungle that we don't know with no clear path, but maybe there are some. But for me, there's not been very many clear paths, and we're just rummaging through, right? And something I said when we were getting all this podcast idea stuff together was like, we're just fumbling around trying to figure out who the fuck we are. That's what we're doing. So Soul Wild is search for who we are in our soul and coming across these magical things in our life that not everyone sees, not everyone experiences. And spirit, literally. So what about you, Kate? Do you want to talk a little bit about what it means?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I have a little more of a nerdy take on it. For anyone else out there who's a huge Avatar: The Last Airbender fan and who doesn't completely shit on Legend of Korra, that's what I thought of initially when we were kind of batting around what word to use because we both agreed on wilds, but we didn't necessarily agree on spirit or soul. And but I think of the spirit wilds in Legend of Korra, and it's literally a wilderness. There's a path there, but in this journey you can choose to not go on that path and create your own. And I really, really liked that because that's honestly, I felt very similar in that some of the path I've walked has been laid out, but a lot of it has been completely forged with some help for me, but it's still my own path. So it's not completely the same as even my mentors or the people that have been there accompanying me, and how that has challenged me to also understand that my path doesn't need to look like other people's in the soul wilds, and most certainly other people's will not look like mine, and that's okay. And we're all here to just help guide each other. So that's what it means to me.
That was very well said. And as you can see, like it does mesh a lot of our interpretation of our name, but it means a lot to us to be able to share this journey and help other people find their way, whether we're guiding them or you guys guiding you guys or if you're guiding yourself with our tips in mind or our voices in your mind, whatever helps you along the path of adulting and life,
literally
physical and not physical, but
And I like how you said, like, not everyone will know this path, and it's true. Not everyone will choose to, like, walk this, that's for sure.
I like how you said that. Thanks.
Mhm.
Okay.
So,
So
yeah.
another part of our day today, we're gonna talk a little bit not just about what Soul Wilds is and what it means, but a little bit more about our journey and what got us to this point. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna let you lead that combo.
Yeah, Katie wants me to go first, so I will. I
Mhm.
will oblige.
Yeah.
Um, man, what hasn't what hasn't gotten me to this point? Um, but definitely some highs and lows throughout the path, so to speak, some twists and turns, some turning backwards, but my background, I feel like, is one of a very strict Protestant upbringing. But I always, even though I had a strict religious upbringing, I feel like the spiritual has always been a part of it, unwittingly to me until I got older. And it's been instrumental, I think, in me connecting to something bigger than myself. And I say that because I do quantify and qualify religion and spirituality as two very different things. I would say that I am a spiritual person now. And of course, the cliche of I'm a spiritual being having a human existence. So, but I had my first encounter essentially from my recollection, with maybe you could say paranormal or spiritual experience when I was 7 years old. And my grandmother died and I was close with her, and obviously that was my first true experience with loss of people that I love, and I would have clairaudient, clairsentient, and clairgustant. So the clairs, we'll be talking about those. So basically hearing, seeing, like vision, and then smelling experiences with her. And I remember shortly after she died, I guess my mom and I were walking into our home, walking down like the front pathway, and all of a sudden, I guess I turned to her and she was like, "Mom," I was like, "Mommy, I feel Nana. She's giving me a hug," and she was like, "Okay." Like, my mom believes to a certain degree in some of that stuff, but she was like, I mean, this kid's 7. Like, I don't really know what to say about that. And then throughout my childhood, I had very vivid dreams of being other places. Some of them I'd be flying in the air, and some of them I vividly remember being able to breathe underwater and like I'm swimming in an ocean. And so,
Were you aware
when
that they were a dream? Were you aware that it was dreaming? Or was there not that awareness yet?
they felt like I was in another world as it was
Okay.
happening, and then I'd wake up and I'd be like, "That was a dream." You
Yeah,
know what
like
I'm
it felt like
saying?
you traveled, not like you were dreaming. It's crazy.
I mean, now that I know what I know,
Yeah.
yeah, then
It might be crazy, but
yeah, like and so when I was young, thankfully they were good dreams. And then as I got older, and I think obviously like religious indoctrination came into it, and then of course like mainstream movies scare us when it comes to paranormal stuff because it's normally horror, right? So
with
I
that.
so yeah, which would do, but this was terrifying in terms of having night terrors, legitimate night terrors. When I was like, I'd hear sounds in our house, and the house was new. Like my parents built the house, so it's not even like the house was like old. But we were in the middle of the woods, so that I remember that being creepy. And I live in like the middle of Appalachian Mountains, so lots of lore there, but um having night terrors of like this creature or thing that looked like the girl from The Grudge. And she would, crawl on top of my bed. And at the time I was religious, so I would pray, right? And it was terrifying. It would be like nights of this occurring, and I'd wake up like, you know, but I'd fight it every single time. I would fight it, which was really interesting. So that wasn't always great. But I do think as I got older, maybe I just didn't realize that some of the things I was experiencing was potential spiritual connection. I just thought I had anxiety, or that, like people say they're an empath. Well, like, so that can be trauma based, but I do think I would pick up on other people's stuff, and I didn't know how to handle that. And then it all kind of finally came to a culmination, where I had, I think, a first kind of awakening after a friend passed away. She completed the act of suicide. That would have been my sophomore year of college. And that led me to really start questioning my Christian faith. Um, and at the time, I didn't realize it, but I had witnessed like her death, and she had completed the act in her dorm room, and it was scary. It was scary. I was like, why am I seeing this? Like, I shouldn't know what this was like. And it was a lot. It was, as any if anyone has gone through that, like, it is tough when you lose someone, and especially in that way, a young person. But it really forced me to reckon with my Christian faith, and that, like, my faith would call me to condemn her and then also condemn her to hell. Like, if you're really going off of what you're taught. And that didn't line up with me. I was just like, I can't reconcile that. And from there, it was like a leaping pad into just, I started kind of slowly deconstructing my faith over the next 10 years, because that's when I was 20. And I think I really came to a head in 2020. So that was in 2010. So 2020 pandemic hit. And then
Yeah.
that was the real big one. That's when I totally was like, I just don't think I'm a practicing Christian anymore. I'm questioning more of what's out there now than ever. And I had a very intense and severe awakening. That was basically the real deal one. Um, I was having night terrors. I was traveling. I was different places. Um, I started really, like, my clairs really started picking up, whereas they were kind of latent, I think, for a while. But then I started having visions again, the clairaudience, the clairsentience. And of course, it just was a deep dive from there into, I started with crystals, and I progressed from there. And here I am on this podcast now with um, a business that I do astrology readings and tarot, and, just try to help guide people the best I can. And I'm super thankful for all of it, even though it was really hard, and I'm still walking it. So we're still here, which is good.
Yay. It's also a never-ending path, I feel like.
N-
The never-ending story for real.
Always more to
And not in a bad way, But that's intense. That was a lot of deep stuff. And I know we'll probably get into the details of a lot of those experiences as we go along. And I'm excited to learn more about those. But shoo, I can
Sheesh.
feel, shush, I can feel like the intensity of the and the deepness of the things that you've been through just through that brief story. It's just like,
Yeah.
and so many people experience similar things. So I'm excited.
I do want to, yeah, it's important to share because people won't feel alone. But I did want to add, always mundane before magical. So when I was having those experiences, I just want someone to know that I was seeing a therapist. So other things that could have been contributing, like seeing vision, hearing things, we checked out all of those things first medically, because I never want to be like encouraging people to just like willy-nilly you know just be like, oh well, this is normal. But like, the voices were never hateful, it was never negative. It was never telling me to harm myself or harm someone else. The visions, while scary, weren't, it was just very different. But I definitely did check out and really try to upkeep my mental health throughout all of that, which I want to encourage everyone from day one to do. And to just make sure we're checking out other things before jumping to magical conclusions. I just always want to add that in there.
Such a good point. I'm so glad that you brought that up. And I feel like mental health and mental illness in general is something that's a lot more common than we are willing to recognize or acknowledge, or not even that we're not recognizing it, but like a lot of people, I feel like we just normalize it. And then it's like, well, everyone's dealing with that. So you should be dealing with that too. Or like if you're dealing with that, a lot of other people are dealing with that. And it's just like, it kind of discounts the individual experience of like what's actually going on. And yeah. And that's any professional that listens in, or any professional that I know I've interacted with in my lifetime, and me as a working professional now, you always rule out medical first before you start diving into the other things, regardless of where those other things are or takes you. Crystals or herbs or literally anything. So
Yes. Yes. Because we're still humans. We're still having a human experience. So we got to take care of that human side first, or along with the spiritual. It's very important. But I would like to hear, and those were awesome points. And I know you have a lot of experience with that kind of stuff. And I would like to hear your story. I want to hear all about the path. Enough about me. How about you?
actually, we're ending there. um, my journey to here really started with also very similar to yours, questioning the religious part of my upbringing. And I'm not going to dive deeply into that because I really don't want to get into religion too much from a personal standpoint. But I do think it is important to consider when you're on your journey, because having a belief in something, I think, is important, even if it's a belief in nothing, if that makes sense. So, me, at a very young age, I grew up Catholic. We went to church every week. We went to Sunday school every Sunday. I had some health related issues come up as a child related to migraines. We had to figure out what the source of that was, which caused me to stop a lot of things in my life, Sunday school being one of them. And then we had some traumatic events in my family, and a death. My grandfather passed away, and I think that had my dad kind of out of sorts. I don't know if at that time it was related, or if it was just around this, happened to be around the same time, but going to well. But and here I am, and mom laughs at me when I talk about this, and it's so true. I even think about when I was in high school, and I was taught, to believe in the higher being of God, Jesus. But I didn't learn a lot. Not to say my teachers were good. I just really didn't resonate even as a child. So I'd be in Sunday school, and like little old me, who's very studious, like I'm a sit in front of the class kind of person. And I'm like, this is some bullshit, like I'm sitting there like, y'all really buying this? Like, I don't know. I don't know. And I was a child, like young. So it never,
Strong sense of self.
maybe, I don't know.
I think
Maybe.
I think so.
I did grow up. I was fortunate to have both parents. We had a lot of issues in our household that I got to understand as I got older. But, growing up in a kind of typical home with a typical, I say typical, is that even a thing? Like, we had an interesting family dynamic, but, I had both parents present. And I know that faith plays different roles in people's lives depending on, their family dynamic, really. And then, like, what's your family's belief, and like how powerful is that belief, and then how is that affecting your practices? But all in all, religion doesn't matter what you practice or listen to or believe in. The ultimate goal should be always should be love, unconditional love, higher being, spirituality, people, doesn't matter. If you have a good teacher, everyone should come to that collective thought of love. But I did not have that feeling. So anyway, I went through life. I had some traumatic events happen, and it had me continue to question my belief system and whether or not if Jesus exists. I felt very judged. I felt very I'm trying to think of how to like put this into words like without getting too detailed, but when we were in church, when I was a teenager, we would go occasionally, but it definitely wasn't regular. And other teenagers or young adults did not go up for communion because of a sin like sex before marriage, which I had a friend who was in a relationship that happened to. And people look around and judge that. So there was a lot of judgment, people watching, talking about why or why not someone went for communion and if they should have or not. There was just a lot of judgment around the Catholic group that I was around. And that's what I remember. I don't remember
Yeah.
I don't remember the teachings. I remember constantly being concerned and worried about being judged.
Well, that energy, how that made you feel and how you imagined it made other people feel.
And I didn't want to be there, so I didn't really learn probably what the benefits of religion can have of love and acceptance. I just felt more judgment.
Mm.
So with that, I am as a young adult, I when I it was interesting to get into. When I lost my virginity, that is
Dang.
what pushed. I know. Really, I'm not a virgin.
See.
Sorry.
The truth came out.
But when that happened, it was under an interesting circumstances that I'm not going to get into too much, but it made me question how Jesus saw me, and although it's supposed to be loving, if you remember, I have judgment.
Hmm.
So, I cried. I cried for days because of that, feeling like he was
Ugh.
no longer is
Yeah.
going to love me. And at that
Well,
point, I went, back. I started college. I went back to college. I experienced more life. I experienced sexual abuse from my mom's boyfriend, which also not going to get into details of that. But all of those things is what really led me up to losing myself even more and then wanting to find myself and understanding that
mm.
why putting so much weight into what Jesus feels or thinks about me when I don't even know what I think and feel about me.
Wow, that is a great point. So powerful.
That really shoved me into reality. There's a lot of things that happen in between then, like you said, like where do you even start? Journey has always been, and all of these things
Yeah.
I've learned from it in life. But I started, who am I? Like,
Yeah.
what part of me still exists today at that time when I was thinking about it, that existed when I was a young child before all of these influences and trauma and events happened in my life? What part of me has always been? And I couldn't
Mhm.
answer. So I needed to dig deep. I needed to look at old pictures of myself. What colors did I wear? What were my favorite outfits? Like, who was I? I mean, those things
Wow.
are
Yes.
sure, but they're you identify with, as you get
On
older, you
in an organic way too. Yeah. Like someone else
yeah.
wasn't telling you this is your favorite color. That was a time where you were like intrinsically you just knew.
Yeah,
Like it was
and I didn't know how to answer any of that, all of myself. So,
yeah.
diving into that and hobbies, trying to figure out what I enjoyed, like, genuinely, or what I was just doing to please
Mhm.
others. A lot of like, pleasing for others, like, what do other people want me to do, and how can I be better at this? How can I make people proud,
Yeah.
What is about myself do I like currently? What qualities about myself maybe don't I like as much? Um,
Would you would you say you found like cuz you had gotten into yoga and Reiki, was that kind of part of that journey of figuring out what I like?
no, I
Really?
had no sense that even existed yet. I did.
Mm.
I said, "Hey, do you want to go to this Reiki session?" I would have been like, "What? Is that a stick? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sounds like a cool like sound stick. I don't know. Like I would have never known." Um, but what came about, like, so through this search with myself, I started with diving into my relationship with food. And, I still am working on that, as most of us are. What that it means to me, right? But I started, I've always been super empathic. And as a child, one quality about myself that I was taught to not like, that I've learned to embrace and love about myself today, is being super empathic and super in tune with energies, especially with animals and insects and things like that. So as like a kid, I would step on an ant or a butterfly hit the windshield, or I watched, a butterfly in the garden die and ants eat it. I was horrified. I would bawl my eyes out about it. Like I could not get over it. I felt so deeply that this life ended, but deserved so much more. And my dad would be like, "Oh, you're an why are you crying about an ant or a butterfly? Like, you need to get over yourself. Let's go," And that was his probably way of getting me to move on emotionally, because I was just emotional. But I learned that that was bad. That was a bad thing about myself, that I shouldn't have allowed myself to feel that way. But I never learned how to functionally deal with those feelings. And I forget even where I was going with that, but that's what led me into more of the who am I and empathic journey, which brought me sort of into the realm of all these mystical things, right? So I'm like, okay, what does empath mean? Because I'm Googling like people who are emotional and sensitive, right? Because I'm overly sensitive. I've had,
Yeah.
relation too sensitive as a person. My parents, I'm too sensitive. I've always been too sensitive. My whole
Which is rooted.
about my
Yeah.
consistent.
And it's like rooted in misogyny, I think, too. So
Yeah, well, that makes sense. But anyway,
another tangent.
I need to open up a new avenues today. I'm really good at doing that on my own. But so, I knew I was empathic and I was like, I didn't learn where my food came from either. So now this whole vision of understanding myself as a sensitive person in a positive way, and then understanding myself of what do I feel good eating, brought me into this journey of I don't feel good eating animals. As a child growing up, I did not know the chicken on my plate for dinner, same as that chicken that I saw at the farm on my I did not know.
Yeah.
No one taught me that. No one told me that. In fact, I guarantee how sensitive of a person that I was as a child, people avoided telling me stuff like that, knowing like, oh my gosh, don't tell her that. You know what happened when the butterfly was in your garden. You know what happened.
Oh no.
Like, there's probably that, right? So I didn't learn until I was older what was going on. Do you remember Dirty Jobs? Anybody watch
Yes. What a show.
God, it was like the first year it came out. I'm flipping through and I put Dirty Jobs. I'm like, oh, cool, a new show. Guess where he was? Pig slaughtering.
A farm.
A pig slaughter. So it made me sick because we ate pork chops.
Sick.
Like, sick. Like, we eat pork chops regularly, man. Like, we had pork in the house, bacon, all the things. And I had no fucking idea. And I was like, it was not good.
What are those?
Bless my parents at that time. I can't imagine the state that I was in. I cannot.
Yeah. Just
But I immediately was like, I am not eating pork anymore. Period. So y'all have pork chops on the table, not me. Give me the broccoli. I'm good. Like, period. And at that, I never ate pork again. There's been twice maybe since I was like, I don't know, how old was I? Like 10 or 11 at that time. I've only eaten pork by accident twice because there was like bacon on a sandwich I ordered and I didn't realize it or something like that. But outside of that, I just can't. I can't do it. I love pigs so much.
I get it. They're cute. They're cute. They're really intelligent animals.
Anyway, that I could keep going about animals, but I'm going to stop there. If y'all are curious, we can talk about that later.
We can talk about that. Yeah, that could be a topic.
That's the whole thing. But anyway, so that started merging in my life and I started making choices of I'm not going to be eating these animals as best that I can. It was difficult to cut out all animal products and still is, but it's an active thing I'm working on. So that kind of merged with my life of understanding my empathy with animals. And later on, I ended up having a relationship, and his mother was a nutritionist. So I started attending like nutritionist like workshops, and there was a whole food plant-based workshop, and we signed up and I went. And I learned about whole food plant-based eating, and that really helped bring knowledge into my world of healthy eating and habits and things like that. At that workshop convention, it was like a it was like a whole day or a whole weekend, I can't remember. I remember walking out and there was this huge van, and on the side of the van was these paintings of animals, like dogs and cats, birds and snakes. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cute! So cute! Insert child holding puppies screaming, so cute. I was like, what do you do for a living? Tell me more. She's like,
Yeah.
I provide Reiki to animals, to pets. And I was like,
Awesome.
what's that? I was like, what is that? Yeah.
Right.
I've never heard that in my life. So that was the first time I heard that word, period, out of anybody's mouth.
Period.
Right?
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And then I went on a whole series of exploration. And if anybody has a scientific mind like me, I've always been in research and studying, and I want to see the group studies. I want to see the populations that were like, what was the target population? Like, I need to know all of the things, right? So she's telling me about them, and I'm like loving it because I'm thinking about the animals, but I'm also like, the hell is she talking about? This lady's crazy. Like, literally, I was like, but she has a business and a vehicle. I was like, that's the whole thing. It's not just some lady sitting on the side of the street on drugs saying, hey, I provide energy work animals. Because to me, if there was a van, that I would have been like, she probably lives on the street.
I don't know about that.
I was very ignorant to that world.
So was I.
Existed. So
I would have been like, that's a little out of pocket.
Yeah, right.
10 years.
So I'm like, bet I'm signing up for Reiki certification. But buying books at Barnes and Noble, which is my usual. I'll just buy books and start reading about it. I love teaching myself new things and learning new things. But I was like, I'm actually get certified in this shit, and I'm gonna see how I feel about it. Not because I wanted to practice, but because I was like, I'm gonna debunk the fuck out of this.
Really pretentious.
I was like, oh my God, I was so motivated. I'm curious, but I'm also motivated to be like, this is bullshit, right? And let me show scientifically that this is bullshit. So I go, and it changed my world. Like, I cannot explain to you the avenues that session opened up for me, and it literally blew my mind.
Nice.
I have always been a super visual person. Dreams, art with art.
Yeah, so visual. Yeah.
I can envision things. And I think my dad's like that too. And maybe genetic, I'm not sure. But, that artsy part of me, I think comes from him a lot, interestingly enough. But I had lots of visions, and we'll get deep into those visions in another podcast. But it blew my mind how meaningful it was to me, and trying to figure out, what does this mean? What the hell just happened to me? Like, I felt something. It wasn't my brain. It wasn't daydreaming. It wasn't a dream. I felt something that was there that we cannot see.
Exactly.
And from then on, I've been rooting around, trying to learn and figure out as much as I can. And it's been a journey. I've had a lot of growth from that. One thing I like to refer to a lot of these traumatic events that I briefly mentioned before as being like my river of Styx. The anxiety, the depression, the trauma, it really flowed me away from those things and experiencing and accessing those things in life. And eventually, when I started questioning why I was just letting myself flow down this river of depression and everything else, I need to get off. Why am I letting myself do this? And start exploring. And a lot of those events and people in my life at the time had helped navigate me unintentionally to those things. And through educating myself and just saying, I don't know about this, I'm gonna try it out, right? Being open-minded and just being willing to learn and try, and not just closing it off. The world is so much more than what we can see. And we are
Yes.
not crazy for saying that. A lot of times in our podcast, I'm probably going to say I might be crazy, but not
crazy,
really.
but
Like
still
there's
think it's
some,
true.
there's got to be something else
Yeah.
with the experiences that I've had.
Well, there is.
So in a nutshell, that's what led me to the path that I've on now. And I'm a baby in yoga teacher training. I just started. I'm really excited about that journey.
She's gonna kill it.
I started meditation teacher training years ago. Still haven't finished it. It's online, self-paced. Who can relate, right? If it's self-paced,
things.
it's gonna be some years. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of things. Yeah, a lot of things that have been brought into my life that have brought me so much peace, and I just want to share it with everybody. I just want to just be like,
you have to listen.
Yeah, right.
And healing looks different for everyone. It's not
Exactly.
It's not going to mean you're going to skip off into the sunset singing songs. Hey, like life's amazing.
Yeah.
For some people, healing is that their mind opens up a little bit and they're not such a negative Nancy all the time, right?
Exactly.
Where they start going to therapy, they take a step. Maybe that's healing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when you never considered it before.
You do.
Yeah. And there's so many modes. Also, I wanted to add, for anyone interested in Reiki, I also share Katie's enthusiasm and passion. And thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for like being open enough to like share some of those more painful stories, but also just
it's taken me a long time.
Awesome.
Thank you. Same to you.
You're welcome.
Like it's deep. Yes. Everyone's life goes deep. And it's not unique, reminding people like struggle is not unique to you. And I hate to say it's like that, but it's a reality check. It's a reality check of like you are really not that unique. Like there's so many people on this planet that experience similar things. So like look, reach out, try and relate to people, anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's a whole nother tangent. But
yeah, it's like you are unique, but also the struggle itself, like not maybe the detail of the struggle, but knowing that like living sometimes entails struggle. And I think for me that actually, even though it's a harsh truth, I guess I deal better with some harsh truths because of my upbringing, but like it gives me comfort because I know with each struggle I'm gaining the tools to get through the next thing and to also enjoy the moments of peace, serenity, success, and to like take it in stride and just know that like life is all about the light and the dark, right? But a great book for Reiki enthusiasts or people who want to understand what we talk about when we say Reiki or energy healing. It's by, let's see, I just had a PhD, Johanna Blomqvist. I believe Blomqvist, I might have said it wrong. From Quantum Physics to Energy Healing, a physicist's journey to mind and healing. So it's a really good book. It can help put it into perspective about what quantum energy is, because it's obviously a topic that's very broad and I love to learn, but like it can go over anyone's head to try to understand it on their own. And it helps me answer people's questions who may be skeptical, because trust me, I'm with Katie. I have even some of the experiences I have now that you cannot explain, I have skepticism around them. And it has taken me a long time to try to supersede my rational mind and understand that some things are just, we don't have an explanation for right now. Maybe one day we will.
But I hope we do.
Yeah.
I love how you brought up a resource. So, if anybody else too is like, oh, like, I feel like I'm an empath, right? Like a lot of people say that. Maybe most people hopefully are correct. But learning about yourself in that way in order to look at it as a strength and not a weakness. But this is the book that I read that really changed my world, and I felt connected and understood for the first time about my sensitivity. And it's Dr. Judith Orloff. If you don't know her, look her up. If you're not a reader, there's Instagram accounts, Facebook groups. I'm guaranteed there's probably some kind of audio for the book, but it's called the Empath Survival Guide. There's lots of books out there, guys. So that doesn't mean this
So many
book
resources.
fits all. Yeah,
There
it's
you
not
go.
one book fits all deal. So you look around. I spent when I was first trying to figure all this crap out, I spent a lot of time in Barnes and Noble just flipping through books, seeing like this feels like a book that I could get something from. Right. And that
Yes.
doesn't mean this is the end all be all either. Like, just because it's written here doesn't mean this is it, period. Right. That's why it's a journey, and that's why it's the wilds. It's not clear on your path. So you have to do the work.
And also, I mean, we may as well just share some resources. That's okay with you. Another great book to understand trauma and like trauma-based therapy, because I feel like a lot of people on the spiritual path, some of us got some stuff in our background that's extremely traumatic, let's be honest. And to me, I don't necessarily try to compare or like do a one-upmanship on like the shitty things that have happened in my life, but I do look at them as things that have been posed in my life that I hopefully can use in the future for me to help others. And it's one of the main reasons I became a healer, to be completely 100% honest. And it helps me relate. Like if nothing bad ever happened to me, I'd be a hard person to relate to be honest. But The Body Keeps Score is also another wonderful book.
I have it.
Huge fan of EMDR therapy. That's what I utilize in my life. I'm so thankful for, shout out to my therapist. We've made some big strides, especially within the last couple of years since the pandemic. But yes, Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma by Bessel van der Kolk, MD. So I like that these books we're talking about are written maybe by people that have a skeptical mind, right? Johanna Blomqvist, I mean, she's a physicist. So like practical minded, real world rooted,
Girl.
but still willing to like admit, right? We're still admitting that we don't know what we don't know, and we're gonna try to figure it. So yeah.
Oh my God. I'm not another. Listen, guys, I have so many, but I'm just.
This is actually a book club.
Yeah, I didn't know, but
Whoops.
yeah, I mean, I have so many. There's one more I'm gonna say today because I have ones that I've loved, that I've gotten things out of, but I have ones that have changed my world and my life.
Yeah.
And the Judith Orloff is one of them. The other one, and I shared this with my brother who just started medical school. So it's travel. So please be kind. But this Into the Magic Shop Mania, like this guy, he's been.
I would have to add that.
This is a neurosurgeon story about finding peace in breath work and finding, and it's not Reiki. It's not necessarily the spirit world or soul realm of things, but it's a new perspective on how you can look at your life to find peace, especially if you have a very difficult, taxing, emotionally involved job, like a freaking neurosurgeon, right? Yeah. So this is James Doty. He also has a podcast, and he has a lot of great resources out there. But it really, really looks at the connection of the brain and the heart, and not just from a neurological standpoint, but from like a true, there's parts of your soul that we cannot operate on, that we cannot see, that are linked. And 10 out of 10 changed my world. So I'm done with the books for now. I have got literally, you don't even want to see the next extent of my book.
I'm in the process of opening up an office, and I'm excited because I can take some of the books that I have on my home bookshelf, and I had the thought the other day that it just makes room for more books.
Yeah.
I want, but I don't necessarily need.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
And if you're not a book person, there are podcasts for these.
Yes. Audiobooks.
All out there.
Podcasts. I love
all out there. I mean, even short snippets on Instagram, following the right people. But yes, we could keep talking about the journey and preparation for your journey and things like that. But we're probably going to have to come to a close soon. We're so grateful that you came. and that you're listening. And I hope you get to continue to listen and really start to see strides in your own life,
Yeah.
even if it is simple changing your mindset or to
Yes.
more positive thoughts.
Just dip the toe in the wading pool. You don't have to take a full dive.
You have to start somewhere. You have to start
literally.
somewhere. And you
Don't
can't,
wait.
you literally can't do it all at once. Like, Kate, how long have you been on your spiritual journey? Like, actively and actively, intentionally on this journey.
Intentionally on it?
Yeah.
Oh, since I was 26. 7 years.
Okay, 7 years. I started in 2017. I don't know how old I was in 2017. So 6 years ago. We started around 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, we need to talk about age on here. Ain't nobody needs to know.
I'm 33, baby.
I am forever.
I don't know.
I'll be that old.
Yeah,
like,
I'm glad it was
21.
Yeah.
I want 21 candles on there. That's it. I'll have like wrinkles, whatever.
No,
but
whatever.
yeah, so honestly, and I still feel like it's brand new. I have a lot more work to do still.
I'm a toddler right now on this journey. I'm just learning to walk.
Whoa, look at that butt. That's pretty. Yeah, we're toddlers right now.
Yeah, like just wonder and terror at the same time.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Fumbling around. Here we go. But it's so exciting. Yes, it's just so exciting. And you have to start somewhere. And it's a journey. And we hope that we can, share enough from our last 7 or 6 years of work that we have intentionally put into finding ourselves. That doesn't mean every day, guys. That does not mean I have done this every day.
No, last 6 months I've not really been like a spiritual girly. I've been dealing with some real world stuff, which is okay.
Yeah.
But I think it helps me deal with the real world stuff.
It absolutely does. Yes. It needs to, and that's something I want to work on, is it being more of a regular practice. But just know, for you, if you're starting out or you feel like you're in the midst of the wilds like we are, it is ongoing, my friend. You start somewhere. And
it never ends.
Yeah.
Never ends. So it's comforting and also a lesson. But thank you. Like Katie said, we thank you for being here. We hope you come back. And we'll hopefully release a schedule here soon of how often we post. We're just starting out, so gauging interest, gauging what we can do with our own lives outside of this. And we hope that you tuned in again.
Yeah.
A while.
Some of the things that you might hear from us, talking about energy work, talking about meditation and exploring those senses, right? Like you said earlier, the vision, the hearing, the smell. Different tools, astrology, we'll get into that, digging deeper into ancestry stuff or
change my life,
past lives. Healing in a lot of ways. We'll talk about myths and legends. Like, we have plans, we got lots to do. But yes,
list is long and getting longer every day.
Yeah, and we're here and open to ideas. So we will see you back, guys.
All right, I am Kate.
And I'm Katie. That's all, folks.
We're signing to that, but that's all. Bye.
Bye.